Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this next episode of HBMA Live. Today we have two guests to talk with us about regulatory compliance. So Emily Osetek, HBMA President and CEO of Pettigrew, is back with us. Hello, Emily.
Hey, how are you?
Great. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
And we've got Dennis Allen, who's CEO of Emax Medical Billing. He's also chair of our Compliance Accreditation Committee within HBMA. Welcome, Dennis. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Kurt. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, it's good to have you both and to talk about compliance. I know this is a complex issue. It's an issue that has risks associated for those companies that have issues, challenges. Before we get into that, I want our viewers just to get a chance to know both of you. So, Emily, this is your second time on HBMA Live, but for those who weren't able to tune in last time, just want you to share a little bit about your background. You know, what brought you to the RCM industry and then ultimately to HBMA?
Okay. Well, I've actually been in the RCM industry probably for about 30 years. It was when I was a baby. I think that's what we all say now. It's like
Exactly.
about like 10 years old, I guess. But I actually worked in a hospital and was recruited by a medical billing company. And so all of a sudden, boom, I was into the revenue cycle management industry, and I just loved it. Again, as I told you before, it is a passion. You know, once you get that bug, it never goes away, it seems like. So, I spent, probably about 15 years or so with corporate clients, different firms, traveling all over the U.S. And then I decided to do it on my own. And so I bought my own firm and built it up over 16 years. And so in 2019, then I actually was acquired by Pettigrew Medical. And again, they're a global company, all over the U.S., India, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, whatnot. So it's a much larger organization that I'm with now, and I am the COO with them. And again, I've been with them since 2019, and I've really enjoyed it. I like this industry because it is always changing. It's always a challenge. It's every 2 years or so something happens with the government, and we have to make some changes. And I like that, but I also like the fact that being with HBMA, we're usually the first ones out with the information, about what is changing here. And so I think a lot of our clients, and providers in general just see us as a real big asset to them.
Great, Emily. Thank you. And how about you, Dennis? This is your first time on HBMA Live. What would you like our viewers to know about you? How did you get involved in RCM?
Well, interesting. I have a different background. I didn't start off in RCM. Actually, my wife, Rebecca, and also a business partner, started Emax back in 1995. I joined in about 5 or 6 years later. I helped her in the beginning, but I was doing other things. My background is in technology. I was the editor-in-chief of Byte Magazine, also lab director, and we handled the National Software Testing Labs, ran that. And I've had a couple of startups along the way before, a .com, back before the .com bust. So, I've learned how not to do a lot of things, and that's been helpful in running an RCM company. I've been here with Emax now for the better part of 20 years, and it's just been a fascinating look. Sometimes it's interesting too, because in the technology field, I used to work with, truly rocket scientists, and now in this field, I work with sometimes brain surgeons. And
right.
It's interesting because sometimes not all the technical folks were, some were rocket scientists, but they weren't brain surgeons. But some of the brain surgeons, they're not exactly rocket scientists. So it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of how the folks change, but there's still that kind of similarity as to how they're all kind of nerdy. And I fit in really good with those folks. So I love them.
Thank you. And so you both have decades of experience in the revenue cycle management industry and a long time involvement in HBMA as well. So you've both been chairs. Dennis, your current chair, and Emily, your past chair of the Compliance Accreditation Committee. So you've been involved in HBMA and that committee for the inception of our Compliance Accreditation Program. So how did this whole program get started? And, what's the history of the program?
Well, again, I think, Dennis, we were kind of chatting a little bit earlier on, but we were approached by another firm, to be able to work for, become accredited. Okay, and provide that accreditation status to our member companies. And what we realized is that wasn't the type of program that we wanted. What we really wanted was something for really compliance. I think that was our pain point. Dennis, maybe at that time, 2016 or so, was compliance. And because everybody in this industry, OIG, CMS, they require us to be compliance, and they have all these regulations and guidelines that we have to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue is that although we have seminars and very good educational sessions about compliance, it was a trend that we would all be very excited, and we'd take this information and we would go back to our offices and we'd go, okay, we're going to get this in place. Well, we all had to be the compliance officer. We had to do everything. And
right.
So it never really, we could never complete the whole thing, or we had a big manual. Okay. So we've got all this documentation. It's all, in the paper documentation. So when a client says, well, let me see your compliance plan. Okay, here, 5-inch thick folder or whatever. And so that just wasn't meeting our needs. And so we started looking around and saying, who could help us do this? And now I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, because as I was saying earlier, I remember the day that him and Cindy Pittman just were like so excited at one of our conferences because we found that partner. Dennis?
Well, yeah, my experience was pretty much the same. In fact, a lot of the members I talked to, they all had the same concerns. They needed a way to be compliant and make sure they were doing the right thing. I mean, there's really no secrets to having a compliance program, but there's a lot of facets. And all of us were doing the best we could. We all thought we were kind of doing okay, but you really need that third-party validation to make sure you're really on top of things. And it turns out that third-party validation can sometimes be a little surprising, and you learn things that, well, gee, I didn't think about that in that way, so I wasn't implementing the right policy perhaps, or wasn't implementing the right procedure. And it helps focus you on what's really important in a compliance program. So when we have the opportunity to work with healthcare compliance professionals, HCP, it just seemed like a win-win proposition, because they had the talent, they had the resources to provide the training, and also to be there when we had questions, and to go over our policy procedures, and do, if needed, to do on-site visits to validate. And it's turned out to be a really good thing for our company. And the other folks I've talked to that have also joined have said really pretty much the same thing, that they get a great benefit from using the HBMA compliance program.
So Emily, you make a good point that sometimes people try to impress others by the thickness of their book. Having a 5-inch thick plan, isn't practical, right? I mean, what's the point of having a plan if it sits on a shelf? And is that the situation you think a lot of companies were in before this program launched?
We definitely were. All of us were. And so I think what HCP helped us to do is not only everything that Dennis was talking about, but, they're behind the scenes, they support us, but they were able to devise a plan specific to revenue cycle management companies. Okay, that we also have plans for physicians' offices, facilities, and whatnot, but we wanted one, first off, that is just about revenue cycle management companies. And so they worked with us, developed a plan, they listened to us and what our pain points were, what did we need, okay, in order to make sure that we were compliant in all areas, and it was automated. That's probably what I like the best about it, is that everything is online. And so you're training, you're tracking, you're trending, everything is online. And it makes it easy for your entire company and organization and staff to comply. Okay, you can train everybody very easily. And so that was probably, I just love that. I think it's wonderful. I can pull it up now and go and take a look at the dashboard, and I can see exactly if we have 2 people that still haven't taken, a security test or training. And so it's really nice. I think that's helped us a whole lot. And I think everybody else saw it as well. It's easy. This is so important and it's critical for our industry and our business, but they made it easy to be able to, for us to be able to comply and therefore become accredited, which again, our clients like that, because there's another piece to it. Whereas, for our clients, if they're not compliant and they need a plan, we can help them. We can help them to develop a plan. So we've met a lot of needs here.
Oh, I really like the training aspect of being able to go on that dashboard and see that. There's actually two things too that I also just love, and it's a central repository of all of our business associate agreements. Now, we thought we were really on top of this, but when it came time to actually upload these into the system, guess what? They weren't always where we thought they were. They weren't stored on the same disk drive, and what taught us a lesson. So now all of our BAAs are in one place. We can go to them and find them easily. The other thing is that we list all of our employees and also our providers and vendors, and we have automatic checks as to whether they're still in the Medicare program, or if there's any fraud issues or anything that's come up. So that happens every month. I get a report on that, and I don't have to worry about doing it myself. Again, it's all automatic. So that's a great help and just a great ease of mind.
Yeah, and there's also, we have to check the OIG website for all of our providers, for compliance as well, and that's automated.
Right.
We just upload all of our docs and add the new ones again electronically. It's all uploaded, and then they'll run the scans. If anything comes up, then we have to go to a secondary review. And again, it makes it so easy for us to comply.
Making automated sounds like it's a big component and a big benefit for the program. It just seems like it would be a hassle to have to remember every month to go do that check, and then I imagine it's a pretty manual process if you didn't have this program.
Oh, yeah.
It is. It is.
Frankly, it doesn't always get done if you do it manually. So
exactly.
Reality.
Right. Yeah. But that's the reality, right?
The reality is you just couldn't handle it manually at this point. Maybe some smaller companies could, but as you grow again, it takes time, and you have to have that little reminder. Okay, let's do this. Or you have to have somebody to do it. And if you're a smaller organization like I was, I didn't have the staff to be able to do that. So again, I was wearing numerous hats, and again, it's been very helpful for all of us.
I see we've got a comment also from Roxanne Smith-Kovac. She says, we use HCP too. They took our binder into the cloud like we are. I know that Roxanne's company has been working remotely for years. She's been a trendsetter in that way. It's also easy now. Who could say that about compliance? So I think that's a really powerful testimony about the program as well from one of the users out there, from our viewers. So with compliance, there are obviously risks if you don't do it right. So the program, I would anticipate, provide you some level of comfort that you have a plan that's working, that's providing the checks that you need, the controls you need to reduce that risk to you and to your providers.
We can sleep at night.
You can
Honestly, I'm telling you, it's very stressful when, in this industry, having to meet the guidelines, that it is stressful, but it does take that stress away. God, I was going to say something about what Roxanne was mentioning. Compliance is not easy, but HCP and HBMA make it easy for all of us. So there was something else I was going to say. I'll think of it as soon as you ask me another question, I'm sure.
No problem. Yeah. And there's a lot to keep up with, not just the checks on your staff and who's still able to, has any, sort of red flags related to Medicaid or Medicare, for example. But, Dennis, with regulatory changes, does this program help you keep up with those as well?
Well, it does. The HCP updates the training lessons every year, probably more often than that, but our people go through them every year. And they're also available when we run into a situation that it's like, well, we've never seen that before. We can send them a note and say, hey, here's a dilemma we have. What do we do? And we usually get a reply back in about 24 hours. And it's not just well, do this. It's like, well, here's the source in the rules, in the regulations, and here's what we think. So you get a really expert opinion, and that is really, if that's all we got, maybe I shouldn't say this to HCP, but if that's all we got, it'd be worth the money. But the fact we're getting everything else is just, it's icing on the cake.
Well, and it's also, I would say, relatively inexpensive, to be honest with you. When you look around, the value is there 100%. And, I think also, in this day and age, we all hear about all these viruses that are out there. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what is very helpful to have a program like ours within the organization, because you can file an incident report. Kind of like Dennis was saying, if you're not sure, maybe, and you think, oh gosh, is this a breach? Is it not a breach? Or, while you're researching whether some of your information has been compromised or not, then you put that incident report in there and they follow you through the whole process and until it is closed to make sure that you're okay. Okay, and that you have handled this properly.
That's a great amount of support. I mean, I guess it's probably a lot of assurance just knowing you're not in it alone.
Yeah, I can even give you an example that where that really worked in our favor. We, like most everyone, we farm out our statement printing, and so we don't print those in-house, but we do send a lot of letters that we do generate in-house, and we have a folder inserter that does the letters for us. We had a situation, I guess this may be a couple of years ago now, I don't remember exactly, where the folder inserter inserted 2 pages into an envelope. Now, these are patient letters. So the mere fact that they had the physician's name and the patient name, that makes it PHI, protected health information. So there's something wrong there. So right away, when we realized that this had happened, we contacted HCP. They got back to us and say, well, this isn't a reportable breach, but you need to develop policies and you need to take steps so this doesn't happen again. And they helped us through that process. So we implemented a policy and some ways of checking systems to make sure that this thing didn't happen. Because sometimes, even no matter what kind of equipment you have, you do everything you can, but the equipment can sometimes work against you. In this case, 2 letters went to a patient, one didn't belong to them, and we were able to do what was necessary to correct that. And these kind of mistakes happen. Everybody knows that everyone has experienced something like that before, but to have someone in your corner to say, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to address it, this is what you need to document, and to go forward that way, it was a big relief. And we weren't just wasting our time trying to figure out what should we do. We knew exactly what to do in addition to just correcting the problem.
Was that an aha moment for you as well?
Well, it was, but I think our biggest aha moment, and you guys will laugh at this, but we're a pretty small office, and we were not locking our file drawers because we have a locked door. We don't have people coming into our office, so the file cabinets that we have, which are not that many because we're mostly electronic, were not locked. They said, well, you got to lock them. So as we were going into the program, they said, this is something you have to do. Okay, fine. But it got us really thinking about, well, if we lock them, then what do you do with the keys? How do you secure the keys? So we went through this process of thinking, how do we secure things? And before it was all over, we have a key safe mounted on the wall that has a combination. So all the keys stay in the safe, except when they're used to go out and lock. Everything's tracked. And there's a photograph of all the keys so that when we close it at night, that everyone knows that all the keys have been returned properly. And, that was kind of the aha moment. It's like, well, gee, there are things that we never thought about doing. Perhaps we should have, but we didn't. And, it just causes you to think differently about compliance and security. And that's been a big benefit for us.
Thanks, Dennis. That's an interesting story. Just something that seems so basic that you do every day, just finding another way to think about it and reassess and improve what you do. So. I'm looking at the audience. I wonder if there are any questions from our audience that you'd like to pose to Emily or Dennis. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to pose them or share them in the chat. Happy to pass them along to the guests. How about you, Emily? Were there any, big aha moments for you that you feel comfortable sharing with our viewers?
I'm not sure that I can say that there were, because I was a pilot company for another firm and I was accredited.
Okay.
And it took me probably about 18 months to be able to go through that specific accreditation. And so I'd already kind of been through it a little bit. And so that's why I was already in tune to compliance. I think for me, I just found that this whole program was much better. It helped me. It made it so much easier for the whole company to be able to comply. It also made it easier for the employees to understand the meaning of compliance and how important it really was. I think that's something in the past that maybe that's an aha moment. You know, even though we're compliant, we do this, we do that. In the past, you know, the employees are like, well, whatever. Now they know because they're actually being trained on a regular basis on all of the issues that are, you know, a part of our business. You know, I don't think they really understand it. They understood it before. You know, maybe, yeah, PHI, okay, but there's so much more to compliance. And now they see it, okay, the safety and everything. You know, why do we have all these contracts? Why do we have NDAs? Why do we have, you know, what am I trying to think of? What are all the forms? I just lost it right there. But anyway, you know, when we're hiring staff, they have to be able, they spend, you know, a day at least, if not, you know, reviewing forms and videos and trainings to understand if they're going to come to work for us that we are compliant and we expect them to be compliant as well and to adhere to all of the policies and procedures.
And when you go through the program, don't you have the option of training or designating a compliance officer for your company?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And actually that person gets a little bit of extra, they get training as they become that compliance officer. And so again, that's just a plus. You know, it's not on my head or Dennis's head anymore, you know, unless we choose to be that person. Okay. Now we can delegate this out to another individual.
There's actually a certification that comes along with that for that designated person.
That's great. And as you mentioned, Emily, then you've got more people in the company who are involved. More people are cognizant of the requirements to be compliant, and someone else is also responsible for ensuring it, rather than just those of you who are in the top positions in the company. So it actually pushes it out further into the company culture too.
Yeah, and you know, and the staff at any level can actually report something and say, I'm not sure if this is breach or not, but can you check into it? And yes, then we're able to review the situation. If it is, you know, maybe not a, maybe it's on that line, then we make sure that we are training the staff appropriately or changing our policies and procedures in some manner or way.
You know, if I could just add to that, you know, the program really has a great way to report incidents. You know, like you're mentioning, when you have an incident, you say, well, you know, I don't even know if this is an incident or not, but I'm going to report it. You go into the system and you write up what happened, and basically HCP gets back to you and helps you figure out what the next steps are. So again, it's all online and it's all reported there. You get this two-way conversation going, and you can move forward and decide whether it's something bigger than what you thought or it's not. And that's a big help. Just being able to have a place to report this, because most companies, we're all dealing with so many documents, and we're dealing with documents for our clients, we're dealing with documents for our businesses. And, you know, these things get strung across a lot of different file folders in our systems, and it can be hard to locate. So having a central place to put this, and also where our compliance professionals are also seeing it and giving us feedback, is a very important matter, I think.
Well, and I think also, though, it's not just a one-time certification. You know, the first time you go through it, it's a little bit tough because you got to get this, you know, all these data uploaded. As Roxanne said, take their whole manual and, you know, upload it so it can be added to your plan.
Yep.
Then every year you go back through this again. Now, of course, the next time you go through it isn't as hard, but, you know, it goes with you forever for as long as you have your company. Yeah. Really. So we're in, let me see, we're now just 2 years into it. I think we've, 2.5 years, I guess. So the end of this year, we'll go through recertification as well. And then Dennis, you've been on a little bit longer, I think, than I have.
Yeah, I think this will be our fourth.
Yeah.
Or third, you know, I've lost track. But
But
we're in that process now. We're approaching our date, so we're very busy getting things together. So that's the thing we have to do, is we have to review all the policies.
Yeah.
It's like, you set a policy in place, it doesn't stay the same always, and you have to go back and review those policies and procedures and say, well, that was good when we set it in place. Is it still the appropriate policy and procedure? And you have to go through all of that, and that's part of the process. It's not difficult, but yeah. And if we didn't have a program, if we didn't have a third-party validation, I'm sure that it would be human nature to not be on top of this in the way that we are. We've got a deadline now, and we have to meet the deadline. We have to get these things done. And I know that to get anything done, if you have a deadline, you're going to get it done. If you don't have a deadline, well, I can push that back. It's not quite as important. So it's a big help in maintaining your compliance program and ensuring that you're actually always up to date, is having that reaccreditation deadline to fulfill.
Yeah, and many of us, through the pandemic, we downsized our offices. Now that our staff are telecommuting. So of course, some of us had telecommuters before, some of us didn't. So we had to go through and create new policies or update policies for telecommuters. Also downsizing your office. So that means you're changing your vendors. You have new floor plans and emergency exits and all of this. I know because I had to do that here. We went from like 5,000 square feet to 2,000 here in the Charleston office. And so we had to update that plan. So, but it's good. It's a reminder. It reminds us that these are things that we have to do within our industry.
The compliance plan is a living plan. So if you don't use it, if you don't keep up with it, it won't provide the direction you need.
In the end, hopefully nobody ever has any big issues, but you just never know anymore. Again, because it is regulated. And I do recall, Dennis, that you didn't make it to one of our conferences because you had just become accredited. And now once you become accredited, so you get a seal, and you can put this on your letterhead, you can put it on your website, you can use all of these marketing tools that are provided to you at that point. Dennis started getting a lot of business.
Yeah, actually, I don't want to overplay this, but we were able to talk to clients that we may not have been able to talk to before because we were accredited by an outside party, and and the folks that we were going to talk to anyway, it reinforced their confidence in us, and it made a big difference. So maybe others may or may not have that same experience, but I'm here to tell you it's helped us. It doesn't do our work for us. We still have a lot of work to do, and it's still getting new business. It's still always a challenge, but I don't want to do it without the accreditation, because it gives everyone that we talk to that confidence that we're doing the things right, and just like we know that we're doing it right because we've had a third party come in and take a look at what we're doing. We can share that with our clients and potential clients, and that's from a business point of view, that's very helpful. So for that reason, I do encourage every HBMA member to consider getting involved with it, because you will see a difference when you tell folks that you have been accredited by an outside party, that HBMA has said that you have a working and good compliance program. It makes a difference.
It does.
I think that's a terrific thought to end this program with. Dennis and Emily, thank you both for joining us, for being our guests this week. Everyone, please tune into HBMA Live next Thursday as well. Our guest host will be Kunal Jain. He's coming back from Plastics Forces, and he's going to bring with him one of the physicians that he works with to give us the provider's perspective on opportunities in revenue cycle management from the MSO perspective. If you have an idea for a future topic, please send them to us at HBMA. You can call us or email at info@hbma.org, or if you want to be a guest. So we want this to be an opportunity for members to be featured. So Emily, Dennis, thank you both for being willing to be guests, to talk about your perspective, and to be featured on the program. So thank you. Have a great day, both of you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.